Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at Royal Farms, Rofo, real fresh, real fast. It's Chicken Palooza month, 10 cents from every box going to our friends at the Johns Hopkins Children's Center. It is football season. It's been a little while since I reached to this friend of mine. I went about 4 or 5 months without talking sports at all, with literally almost anyone at all, outside of Don Moeller and Peter DeLutis. Eric Edholm has covered the National Football League for the better parts of 3 decades in various places, including now back at the homeland of Yahoo. He loves it when I have him on the show and do that. He is Eric_Edholm out on Twitter. And, dude, last time we got together, I regaled you with tales of Vinny Testaverde and I coming together at the Super Bowl and making nice on the 1996 Ravens that you once so graciously put together a piece on. This has been the strangest of all seasons, dude. I haven't had you on since maybe the draft, and they're going to play football, probably, maybe, and you've got a gig because you cover football for a living. But, the college thing going by the wayside earlier in the week and the unintended consequences of all of that for the league, wow, it's pretty heavy duty, huh?
It is, right. Obviously, I mean, draft is a big portion of what I do. I mean, it's sort of my focus, for basically the start of the college football season through May. And so, I mean, obviously this off season, we were able to do some kind of fun projects we never had time for, or could never fit in, or, never seemed appropriate timing. But, with Big Ten out, Pac-12 out, Mountain West, MAC, the FCS schools, others, dominoes could fall too. It's obviously really brutal for a lot of college football fans, for the players, for the people whose businesses rely on traffic coming through on game day and things like that. It's just a horrific thing. And obviously the virus and the liabilities and everything else that goes with it can be blamed for that. But, we're holding strong. I mean, there's still a draft next year, and I'm still trying to put together as much information. I wrote about this week, a couple of pieces about what the effect is, how to scout players who aren't playing football, and it's going to be a little different this year.
Well, I know a lot of the football guys love to take the politics out of it and all that, especially when the Ravens were taking a knee 3 years ago. But here we are, right, where, the politics are about your kids going to school and how they're going to do that. And if your kid is a college student, how they're going to do that. And if your wife's a teacher or a librarian, how they're going to do that, or bus driver or whatever you're going to do, right? So all of us have had to really make tough decisions and think about tough decisions in whatever industry we're in and how it's all changed. But at what point for you did you believe they were playing college football 3 weeks ago because they were putting this masquerade on and testing and, Jim Harbaugh's going to stomp around if they don't, and the state of Alabama is going to go out of business? I'm still trying to figure out what the hell they're doing in the NFL because I haven't figured out what they think they're doing, what baseball thinks it's doing. And then they actually get out there and dude, you love baseball. You love sports. I love sports. I don't know what this is. It certainly doesn't satiate my Jones any more than watching the Rolling Stones on DVD replaces seeing them at Soldier Field. You know what I mean? It's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's a substitute. It's it's like switching sugar for equal or decaf for regular or whatever. It doesn't quite do the job. It's it's the methadone, I guess, of the addicts that we are. I mean, I hate to put it in such terms, but yeah, I mean. You're right, and look, we're Dan Wetzel, my colleague at Yahoo, wrote a great column today about how college football is a great sort of representation of just how divided we are as a country. Right now, everybody's standing in polar opposites of the room and shouting across, and you're wrong, no, you're wrong, and college football really is like the summation of that, right? The NFL fans are going to be all different. You're going to have Ravens fans who vote left and vote right, and somewhere in the middle and all that. But with college, right, you've got the regional aspect to it. The northern fans versus the southern fans, the East Coast versus the West Coast, the people in the middle. I mean,
the Confederate flag versus the people who won the war. Yeah, that sort of thing.
Right.
Little things that. Yes.
Yeah, it's a house divided, essentially. And I think we're going to see the SEC try to play. I think the Big 12 is up in the air. I mean, I think the ACC is going to go forward with this. I don't know. We'll see by the time, sort of the dust falls here, but it's it's wild.
Well, it's
wild
sort of
west
like
right
boxing now, right? Because there's no like real sanctioning of this, and the NCAA loves to take money and make up rules. But like when the pandemic comes, it's like, well, we're not really overseeing things here, are we? And and the whole notion that this can of worms that they're going to try to play in the spring, wink, 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 that maybe leads to, well, hell, y'all, we can make more money in the spring. We'll bring the boys in February and grease them up, have them play the Patsies in March and April. We'll have us a championship right around the 4th of July. We'll own June. We got, I can sort of see them figuring there might be more money in this in the spring than there is in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, most people I talk to believe that's a canard. They don't really think there's going to be spring football because, as one NFL guy I talked to yesterday, and it's a quote from my story. He's like, oh, okay, so you're going to play in the spring. Is the spring February 1st? Is it March 1st? Is it April 1st? If so, why would any draft-eligible player – it's different than baseball, right? College baseball's going on, and they have their baseball draft. Like, you could be on a field and get drafted. That's a little unusual. But, if you're any kind of draft-worthy prospect – like a top 150 or 200 pick guy, right? And there's only 250 selections. Why would you risk playing in the spring and then have to immediately turn around and go to OTAs and then play a full season in about a 10-month
Well, that would be
span?
the issue for colleges in general. They're all counting the books right now and saying, how much money are we missing? Let's get that money back on the books. Let's keep the sponsors and all. And if you play in the spring, you can't play in the fall. You know what I mean? So, like, at some point – you're chasing bad money. It's almost like it's 3 a.m. You're drunk in the casino at this point, man.
Right. That's a great analogy, right? You're sort of just kicking the can down the road, and it's going to have this ripple effect. We are a fall football nation, right? Does it leak into the winter? Sure, right. Does it?
Well, the USFL changed things back in the 80s for a few minutes.
Yeah, that's true, but it also lasted, 2 years? I mean, now not for that reason, not for the seasonality.
Well, the guy who's wrecked our country is the one who wrecked the USFL by trying to convince everybody the USFL was a fall league. I read the book on it. He did a nice job.
Right. He wanted to get absorbed by the big boys, right? And then kind of change the course from there, right? But look, I mean, I the whole spring football thing, I mean, that's obviously been kicked around for years. Now that it's a possibility with college football, do I realistically think it's going to happen? No, I don't. I think it's a way to instill hope in fans, and it's sort of that thing they dangle out there for the players to not transfer, right? They want to keep their best players at home and not have those guys leave. Now, the problem is, if the SEC and ACC go forward with this, I think it could be a huge recruiting advantage for those conferences and those teams. So who knows? It's really going to be fascinating to see how this all works out. Like you said, the lack of organizational NCAA sort of control of this thing is going to lead to some major effects to college football for the next decade.
Eric Edholm is here. He is Eric_Edholm, Edholm. He is at Yahoo Sports, doing all things NFL draft out in the fighting city of Chicago, Illinois. And for the dummy in the room, who's probably me, explain the money of this to me, like where the SEC, and we'll talk about the NFL in a minute, because when I've talked about the NFL and baseball, and it's been very apparent to me with the Marlins and the Cardinals, right, they're going to play no matter what, right? Like the NFL, if Lamar Jackson gets COVID and is hospitalized, they're just going to give the Ravens 2 weeks off, and they'll come back and play 3 weeks from now with RG3. They're just going to play. I mean, I don't know what will make Roger Goodell and a room full of billionaire Republicans shut the season down on October 9th that forced everyone in the world to shut down back in March, and Rudy Gobert, and forced all these ADs to shut down March Madness and basketball and hockey, which are now open for business primarily. But football in general, I'm trying to figure out what they think they're doing, housing, lockering, breathing, what the NFL thinks it's going to pull off here, and that there's going to be a conclusion to this, right? Like the baseball thing, we've seen what that is, right? That's Eddie Feigner in the 7-inning All-Star. It's a beer league at this point. There is no integrity to it, right? I don't know what the SEC or the ACC feel like they're going to pull off, and with football. But as fans, where's the integrity in all of this? And certainly the ACC and SEC players, although I know they're not being paid, wink, 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 and they're student athletes, I'm trying to figure out where the ethics, the money, and I'm always following the money, Eric, but I'm trying to figure out what the hell the ACC and the SEC think they're doing, because I haven't figured out what the NFL thinks they're doing, that they're really going to conclude a season, and we're all just going to go to Tampa in February, and you'll be sitting with me on Radio Row. Because it's just like, it doesn't even make sense to me that they think they're going to play 30 weeks of football.
Right. I mean, we'll see. That's obviously a lot to cover in one.
Well, the college part of this first. Let's start with that. Like,
right.
The onion is the SEC and the ACC are going to play. Yeah, sure they are. It's August right now. What are they thinking? What's going on in their minds, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, worst case scenario is that a player dies, right? I mean, let's just start there with the obvious, right? That a player contracts this, has a propensity for myocarditis, some other heart disease. And by the way, you can get, you can have myocarditis exacerbated by the flu or by any other respiratory illness. This has been known for years. This is nothing new, right? But the way that medical information was presented to the Pac-12 and to the Big Ten, sort of known as more of the academic schools, the Cals, the Stanfords, the Michigans, et cetera, whatever.
The people who have scientists involved in their board, whatever honorariums running there.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to suggest that there aren't smart, educated people I went to an SEC school, right? Okay, that used to be in the Big 12. So, I understand, right? This is just the reputation of
where did you go?
They're trying to. I went to Missouri. Yeah, I went to the University of Missouri.
That's a journalism school. That's not even fair. They think about things there. sometimes.
Well, not always, but sometimes.
Well, not when you get down around Springfield. I've been down there. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Missouri is like 4 different countries, but
you don't even say it right, don't they? Isn't it Missouri?
Missouri. Yeah, that's how they say it. I was stunned when I had a professor actually say Missouri. He said the history of Missouri is a very good, diverse one. I thought, wait, what did you just say? Yes, but
and when I think of the SEC, I think of Missouri.
Yeah, no, we're nomads, whatever. But I think what it is obviously a liability factor for those conferences, and they just weren't willing to have that hang on their head, and there weren't waivers allowed to be signed saying I take all the risk here, and that But I think the big picture is this. I talked to an SEC assistant who's been around for years. He's been in a lot of different teams. He's seen this, that, and the other thing. And his argument was, look, I don't know if we're right about this, but I do know this. We have, and I've seen it up close, this is him talking, we have a protocol in place that is going to be 10 times more rigid, structured, and safe than anything that these kids would have outside of this facility, unless they went to somewhere like an Exos or a training facility for the NFL where they're likely to have the same type of protocols. He said, we are taking this thing extremely seriously. A lot of our lives have been changed dramatically. And the hope is that if we
don't get the pigs on the field on Sunday, we don't get to make the bacon, right? Like literally.
Well, look, there's the money aspect is huge, right? And it doesn't just affect the big wigs too. Like I said, there are restaurants and businesses that thrive. I remember there was a bar in Columbia, Missouri, with the famous bar in Columbia that said, I remember talking to the owner, the ex-owner, years ago, who said, the money I make on 6 football Saturdays at home games, is enough to break even for an entire year. Every other day is profit. So you think about it in those terms, that has always stuck in my head.
We have a thing here called the Preakness that does that for the entire racing industry, literally. They have one day, and if it rains or the betting windows went down back in the 80s because the electricity shut off, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, and that's every business in America huge. The last 6 months. That's opening day for the Orioles and every business in downtown Baltimore. Like we all have that association to that, but then it's a pandemic. People are dying from it, right? And there has been clearly across the state of our country varying differences in opinions as to the science of this, right? Not around the world because the science hasn't changed. That's the part that's freaking me out. Like the thing that shut everybody down, the SEC and the ACC are saying, well, our scientists down here, we got this different because we got the Confederate flag. But that's not going to mean a hill of beans when your people are dying. And I think the Pac-10 and the Big Ten people kind of figured that out earlier in the week. I don't know what point that they figured that out. And I don't think the NFL's going to figure that out. And baseball's had, they hired someone to drive a busload of COVID patients from Philadelphia to Miami. That's what Major League Baseball is doing, is bussing them down and then sending them to Baltimore to play next week. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to play through it.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can learn from those mistakes, too. I mean, obviously, it's like sending COVID patients back into a nursing home, right, and turning it into a cauldron, right? I mean, those are mistakes that we figured out. This is not good protocol. Let's eliminate this from our behavior, right? We've taken what happened in March and April, I think, and realized. And guess what? Like, my wife's a doctor, for instance, and she pointed out, some of the practices that we were doing early on, some of the things that they did with other viruses to treat other viruses, we figured out this isn't the best way to treat patients. And guess what? The death rate has gone down. I'm not saying that's the only metric we need to look at, but the fact is the medical care without a vaccine has improved dramatically over the last 3 or 4 months, even if cases are spreading. And we're seeing cases spread in places where there were believed to be no cases, like Australia and New Zealand. So, I mean, we could take this in a million different directions. And I'm not saying one is right or the other is wrong. I'm just saying that there are people who are saying, look, if other businesses can be open, like restaurants and other, grocery stores and things like that, where people are going to be in close contact, there is no social distancing. You can try to do as much as you want. We can attempt to play football, and if things go awry, we'll call it off. I really believe that they still have that in their back pocket if they get to a certain point.
Eric Edholm is here, Yahoo Sports, the NFL Draft. He covers it all, including the NFL itself. And, I got the protocols the other day. We've done the Zoom meetings with John Harbaugh and Ronnie Stanley and Mark Andrews, and they're gonna lace them up. Dude, I'm in the sports business. I've done this 30 years. It's the way I buttered my bread and fed my family, and Lord knows, and they're going to play, and I'm supposed to be excited about that. And, John McClain said, I'll pick you up at Hobby Airport. We'll go socially distance. And I'm like, we play week 2 in Houston. Kansas City comes in here in week 3, right? The Browns, the Patsies of the world come in here in week 1. The coach hadn't even met the players yet. And my organization will probably figure this out, right? Like, if there is a season and they really play 20 weeks, I like the Ravens' chances of keeping the virus out and bad things out more than most places because of where the location is, the way the front office is, like all of that. I'm not really sure this is a good idea. I mean, I think it's a bad idea, quite frankly. I'm wondering how far in I'm going to go. Am I going to be one of the media members that goes out and sits amongst 12,000 fans, or maybe not now that Dan Snyder shut his stadium down? Like, I don't harbor any thoughts that I'm getting on an airplane the 19th of September and flying to Houston to go sit in an empty football stadium on the roof and not even talk to football players anyway and expose myself to that. For what? I mean, I'm watching the baseball right now, and I can't even watch it. It's not even worth watching at this point. And if another 10% of the league opts out and quarterbacks, it's just – I'm having a hard time in the middle of all of this finding sports to be the opiate that I always sort of found it to be and presented it as,
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's absolutely a fair question to have right now. A lot of media folks are saying, like, do I need to travel to away games? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? Obviously we have sort of protocol in place where media members can't be at training camp every day. And then, they're rotating in and out. They have limited numbers on who can – you're not talking to players up close. Everything's on Zoom, like you said. So there is a detachment right now. And watching games without fans has obviously been sort of a strange experience. I've gotten used to it, obviously, and I think a lot of people have. The quality of play, if you want to argue it's not there, I totally get that. Some people like the bubble more, the NBA bubble more than the regular league. I've seen people sort of float that out there.
Dude, silent playoff hockey. I don't know, man. I don't know. I
watched that game though, that 5 overtime game. I got something out of that. So I get it. I totally. That's going to be the acid test this fall, right? Like, how is Cam Newton going to look with the Patriots? How is Teddy Bridgewater going to look with the Panthers? These new quarterbacks in new situations, how quickly can they pick it up? Are we going to notice? Is it going to look bad? Is it going to look like, like the scab season of '87? I don't think it's going to be that bad, but these are questions that NFL people have. So you have legitimate, absolute questions and gripes that you're raising right now, and I can't tell you that it's going to be exceptional level football. I don't know.
Well, I mean, here in Baltimore, we played a pretty exceptional level of football last year, right? And in Pittsburgh, they didn't so much. And Cincinnati, they're not. And they got the kid coming in. And Cleveland's got a mess on their – I mean, you know, I get the vibe that as long as the virus doesn't come to Owings Mills, we would be in line to have a parade for no one and playoff games for no – I don't know what they're going to do, but I do know as a football fan and as a Ravens guy and a Ravens historian and all that – I sort of guess if we get to September 13th and they roll the ball out and, you know, only 2 of them have caught the virus and we go play football, that on Sunday from 1 to 4, I'll be happy it's there. You know, and I'm willing to take all of that on, but there is no run out to training camp and watch practice today or even care about any of that. There is no bad, awful preseason football, and hopefully the injuries will be down, although – it remains to be seen what happens in these camps in regard to injuries. I expect it to be really sloppy from a line of scrimmage standpoint and whistles and all of the things we see in these awful bad early preseason games anyway. And I'm also expecting that the teams that really have their snuff together, like the Ravens, you know, these historically together franchises, the Saints that have the same coaches, the Chiefs, they're going to have an incredible benefit here to have and have not in sort of the way baseball is have and have not, right?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, you know, you can look at the Astros and say, hey, what's going on with them? They might be in a category unto themselves, but I think it's fair to say that the teams that are typically the most disciplined, the most organized, that have the most retention from last year, especially on the coaching staff, the guys who've seen a little bit of everything, right? You know, the Sean Paytons, the Belichicks, et cetera. You know, the John Harbaugh's got to be in that group, right? Those teams have to have some sort of advantage because I think they'll exploit the weaknesses of others and they'll understand what the priorities are going to be here and how to manage when one of your star players has to be quarantined for a period of time. So, you know, all those things, the roster management, you know, the veteran, talent evaluators knowing that, look, the line of scrimmage people, those are the ones who are going to be, you know, the vast majority of the opt-outs came at defensive line, offensive line, tight ends, the guys who are in those close proximity. Acquiring and maintaining depth at those positions, I think, is going to be crucial because, you know, those are the spots that I think people are most worried about heading into the season. Quarterback, obviously, but so far we haven't really seen quarterback attrition. So I would say the line of scrimmage is really where people's concern is.
Well, this has been fascinating, right? For all of these coaches that think they get battle pay and they're crisis management people, right? And this is really, I think, behind the scenes is tested every Dick Cass, right? Every human resources person in these organizations, as much as it's been about the coaching and the offensive coordinator and Lamar and what's the game plan and all of that. I think what we learned from the Florida Marlins and from all of these organizations, and I think what we've learned from the UCLA cases, right? Where, like, you can be trying real hard and spending a whole lot of money and going through a whole lot of swabs, and as your wife, who is a doctor, would say that, you know, the boogeyman virus is coming to your town, and as promised 8 months ago by every Anthony Fauci, and the NFL is sort of thumbing its nose in the face of that and saying, we're bigger, we're smarter, we have more tests, we have more leadership, all of that. Okay. You know what I mean? The virus makes the rules. It's August. Edholm, I'm going to tell you, if I'm calling you on December 10th and we really are talking about an 11-2 Ravens team, right, and blah, 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 and people are going to games and Biden's president and there's no war and this idiot's going to prison where he belongs. Like, if all of that holds together with the society, right, let alone if you and I are December 10th having chestnuts on the open fire, I'll just be absolutely shocked. I'm 52 years old. I've seen a lot of things in my life. You know, I've seen miracles. I've seen my wife's life saved. I believed in that. I don't believe I'm going to be on the phone with you on December 10th talking about anything that looks or smells or sounds like a National Football League season with integrity. And I keep going back to that word, with integrity, because I think these SOBs will play. I think they'll play if Lamar Jackson's mother gets it and dies. You know what I mean? Like, I literally believe that's where they are. That's who they're showing themselves to be right now. And then, behind the backdrop of that, we have the knee, right? And Kaepernick and all of the other things, injuries, all that Deion's not coming back then. We're going to have all of those storylines, but the virus is going to be the storyline, right? Right?
And the question is, when does that not become a storyline? Is it December? Is it next March? Is it 2022? I mean, who knows, right? I mean, we have strains of viruses that ripped their way through the country, 100 years ago that still exist today, but we found ways to battle them. We found ways to build up immunities to them. We've developed vaccines to them. So, that's your biggest hope right there, obviously. And not just being the race to be the first to develop let's not be Vladimir Putin here. And we've got the first vaccine, right? This is going to be the okay, it may not be, right?
You mean my wife and I aren't flying off to St. Petersburg tomorrow to get that shot?
I mean, look, it's beautiful this time of year, Nestor.
Lovely. If you're going to go now. Go while the sun's shining.
If they let you in, that's the question, I guess.
I hear the Borsh's better this time of year. Yes.
That's true. That is true. You are right about that.
Eric Edholm. Go ahead. Keep going, man. It's all you.
I'm with you, man. I don't know what the end point is, and I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm here. I'm going to write about it. I'm going to talk to you about it whenever I can.
Well, from an industry standpoint, for what you do and the draft and college football, and now that model's been broken for every Michigan kid, Ohio State kid, wherever, Penn State, wherever it is, and probably down the line, Alabama and Auburn, they'll figure it out down there in Tuberville, but that they probably shouldn't be playing either. But this really has set the football industry sideways in a way that most fans haven't really thought about yet, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, some of this won't come out to bear. Some of the plans that they, prepared for will not happen. Some unexpected things will. I mean, that's just sort of how this is. And, obviously you can only sort of speculate and predict the future as much as you're humanly possible of doing. And I think some of these problems are going to be a little bit surprising, and I think some are going to go away better than people expected. That's just going to be the way it is.
Dude, where do you live outside of Chicago? You live north, south. You can't live east. You'd be in the water. But
Northwest. Yeah, I don't live in the Lake Michigan. North.
So, look, I got some really important – this is Friends, okay? Pretend we're not on the radio right now, okay? I'm sponsored by Pizza John's, and I love Pizza John's, and I'm not – in any way, I might drive over today. I might get a cheesesteak. I might get some ravioli. I might bring home some cookies, right? So, but I would sell my soul right now. And all my friends at Sporting News Radio were from Northbrook, that area, right?
Yep.
And so Matt Nahagian now runs the station out in Oakland, California, San Francisco. And I said on the Facebook page we all have together that I'm going to get in my car and drive, and everybody's going to get West Coast. We're going to bring the families together, and we're going to get together somewhere up in Highland Park or Buffalo Grove, and we're going to get some Pequod's Pizza, and we're going to play a softball game to honor Papa Joe and Chet Kopic. So I'm trying to figure out how I can get a guy like you to freeze me about 4 Pequod sausage pizzas and mule those MFers, by a U.S. Postal Service. We're trying to keep the U.S. Post Office in business. So, at least through the election, for sure. So I need some pizza from Pequod. How far from Pequod's are you, man?
Well, it's funny you say that because my wife and I used to live in the city. We were about, half a mile from there. I mean, we go there fairly regularly. It takes you gotta wait for it. I mean, it takes a little while to make that thing. I don't know if they do a frozen variety. They might. I know a lot of the deep dish places do. They do the half bakes and all that. They come out pretty damn good. Like you eat them at home and you say, "Wow, this is pretty close to what we have at the restaurant." So I can make a special trip. I'm more than happy to. I haven't been down to the city in a little bit.
Well, they have the one in Morton Grove is the original one. You know about that one out in the suburbs, right?
Yep, I know Morton Grove. It's not too far. It's about the same distance, but it's quicker because it's highway. So I'll make whatever trip you want me to make. I'll do the investigative work on this puppy.
Dude, this is important. I mean, I'll buy your whole family. I mean, if I could just have a delivery come to my door with 3 or 4 frozen rock solid, and I'll just – so here's the story. A year and a half ago, before we lost Chet Kopic, did you have the honor to know Chet?
I had talked to him on the air a couple times, didn't know him in person, but heard all about him and know all about the legend.
So Chet, I got to know 20 years ago, and Chet was a legend when I walked into Northbrook, Illinois, right? And he took to me, and we became friends and wrestling buddies and Bodine's friends, and we went to a couple games together, and I love Chet, and everywhere you went with Chet, he was larger than life, and he was just wonderful. So I reached to Chet last year. Bob Seger played up in Milwaukee. And he played after the Ravens were eliminated by the Chargers. I had a flight in case they got eliminated because I didn't really believe in them 2 years ago. This year I was going to the Super Bowl, and it was a mess. So I had this flight, and it was a 5-degree January day, and I flew for like $29, out to Midway, and I rented a car. And I drove into the city, and I met a friend of mine, and then I drove up to meet Chet. And it was so icy out that Chet couldn't come.
Yeah.
So I missed out on being with Chet that day. And I said to my wife, this pizza is so unbelievable, honey, and it's so cold out that I'm going to buy a pizza to go with my buddy Stan Jablonski from Dundalk, and I'm going to put it in the trunk of the car, and I'm going to drive up to Milwaukee, and I'm going to see Bob Seger, and I'm going to leave the pizza in the trunk of the car. I said, honey, it's not even going to get above 10 degrees. It's 5 degrees, like literally with the sun shining. I'm going to let the pizza freeze, and I'm going to drive the car back at 6 in the morning because I was flying out of Milwaukee, and I'm going to get rid of my rental car, and I'm going to bring the frozen pizza home, and by the time I get home like 10 in the morning, I'll let it sit out and thaw. We'll have it for lunch. Eric, when I ate that pizza, first off, I love my wife, but I'm sorry I shared it with her. I shouldn't have shared it. I should have kept it for myself. And I came up with this idea that somebody needs to mule me some frozen pizza from Pequod's. And I'm thinking at this point, we lost Chet. He would have done it for me, but he's dead. He can't do it. So it's either or Stan and Jenny Jablonski. So somebody, because I can't fly to Chicago right now to see Pearl Jam, that I need somebody in Northwest Chicago to mule me some Pequod's pizza. That's all I'm going to say. I hope you're the answer.
If the Jablonskis can't do it, I'm your man. I'll get this done for you.
And this is no disrespect. Everybody knows I can get a pizza. Here's what I'll do. I will mule you a Pizza John's if you mule me some Pequod's, and I promise you we're going to be equal because you're going to think Pizza John's is the greatest pizza you've ever had in your life because there's nobody I've taken to Pizza John's that doesn't think Pizza John's is the greatest pizza in their life, except when you want a Chicago style and you can't get one because there's a freaking pandemic on, and I can't get in the car and drive. I can't fly. I can't go to Wrigley Field. You know what I'm doing in summer? I'm going to give you a little a Chicago secret. My favorite all-time ballpark food is the elotes at Comiskey Park. Have you had the honor?
Oh, they're great. Yeah.
Can you tell everybody the pleasure of an elote? Because when I say, nobody here knows what an elote is. If I owned the Orioles, we would be selling elotes at Orioles games. Tell them what an elote is.
Yeah, I'm shocked that's not available there, right? I mean, there's a Hispanic community there you'd think would embrace that and want to make it. I mean, what's going on here? Yeah, it's funny because that's kind of a popular dish around Chicago. Like, if you really dig down into the true ethnic food, like we have our Italian beefs, we have our deep dish pizzas, and all the, I mean, I call it tourist food, but I eat it too. You know what I mean? But, like, you get down and the elotes are really kind of a prized little gem of a specialty, I would say, here. So, yeah, I mean, that's a great summertime food, I think. And I think that's kind of a fun change up to the usual fare, right, that you can get anywhere, the hot dogs and everything else. So, yeah, I mean, that's something that you know what you're talking about, man. I'm impressed.
Hey, Eric, I went to the farmer's market. I came home with a dozen white ears Silver Queen. It's beautiful, sweet, summer Eastern Shore corn. So what I've done is I've added the butter, the sea salt, but here's the key, and this is what makes it an elote. You got to have lime. You got to squeeze the lime on it, and you need to have cotija cheese. You got to have the Mexican crumble cheese, and we have that in my fridge, and I have been eating Comiskey Park corn for the last 6 weeks here with special crema on it. And I miss baseball. I miss hot dogs. You know what I mean? But I'm trying to do things that make me not feel like I'm in the middle of a plague, man.
Right.
Little things.
Yeah. No, that's comfort food right there, right? I mean, that's ideal street food right there, in my opinion. I mean, that's really what you're talking about there. And it kind of marries, you've got the sweetness, you've got the tart, you've got sort of the creaminess as well. it just reeks summer. That's the way to say it. And I usually there's a place kind of close to the old Comiskey. I don't even know what they call it, the U.S. Cellular or whatever the heck it is now.
Comiskey.
But yeah, there's a place not too far from there. You can actually walk there from the stadium that sells the elotes, and it's got other great little goodies there as well. And I've had those there before games and stuff, and it's part of the treat of going to a game, I think.
Well, the truth for me is if I ever come to Chicago with you and we go to a quote-unquote ball game, it will be on the South Side for me, okay?
Absolutely.
That's where I hang. That's where my people hang. That's where the statue of my cousin is. That's where my name – they have my name on the wall there. I feel very welcome when I'm on the South Side. It's true. Hey, man, I love you, Eric.
I used to live in Wrigleyville, so I have a soft spot for it, but I'm with you, man. My people come from the South Side, too, for the most part as well. So
we're going to get on the L, and we're going to go down there, and we're going to do it proper. Don't worry about it. Hey, miss you, miss all of my friends. I miss talking to you, and this is the best I can do. And if at any point you want to ship Pequods equal up for Pizza John's, I promise you, I will send you 3 full-on frozen loaded, topped Pizza John's. I will ship them whatever it costs if it means that it's like a swap. It's like a pizza swap is what we should do.
Okay. I'm into this sort of thing. I think it's cool.
It's all we got left in this life, man. See you soon, Eric.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.
December 10th, I'm calling Edholm, and if they're playing football, we're going to do the pizza swap. You can find him at Yahoo. You can find him at Eric_Edholm. It's always an adventure here on the program, especially when I start talking about food. I'm more interested in food than I am this bad version of baseball, even if the Orioles are winning. Even if I have Jeff Moeller and Don Moeller, Luke, they're all giving me a hard time. Allen's left me alone a little. I'm going to call Allen soon. Bother him a little bit about whether he's watching this or not. 60 games, man. If you haven't heard, the Orioles are in the pennant race. It's true. We are WNST.net, AM 1570. Towson, Baltimore. We're calm. We're local. I'm swapping out pizza for crab cakes all over the country. That's what I'm going to start doing. Sending out my sponsor food to people who's going to appreciate it and reciprocate with food that I can't get from other places. Edholm, I want some popcorn too. I need some popcorn. Garrett's, yes. Garrett's popcorn too. We are WNST.net, calm, local, and Baltimore positive.